Well, hello, and welcome to Mystic Brew. Labor Day, a celebration of motherhood. So let me get into the live chat to kind of begin things here and greet Matt Finger and Meandering Mystic and Oswald Spengler. And CW Chanter, hello CW. And well, that's, it's interesting. Oswald, hello, Elephant. Oh, in honor of Mother's Day and women and all the rest of that stuff. Oh, I guess I have to go into another. Give me a second here. I think it's in here. Oh, wrong one. Oh, wait. There we go. Community settings. And since CW already did do that. Oh, I don't even know. Oh, I guess I can do it in the live chat. Okay, I'm a little new to this stuff. Hello, Mario Heat. There we go. Okay, I have made Elephant one of the moderators. We now have another female moderator. Hello, Sam. And hello, Mari. Oh, I'm also sorry to hear that you're experiencing ill health. CW. It's interesting. I have. Oh, that reminds me. I did it last night. I lit up a chunk of charcoal and then let it burn off without putting anything on it. And it's all nice and hot. So let me get some copal on it. It looks like part of it didn't burn. Huh. That's not good. I'll fix that another time. Okay. So, let me get back here. As I was saying, I have all these. I have my incense burning. I have some lemon. Not lemongrass. I actually have Litsea cubeba, which is kind of like a lemongrass, but it's from Vietnam and it's a finer scent. Hello, Lee. And but I also have an exhaust fan on, and apparently I have a bunch of stray cats I feed. And the skunks do come visit, and apparently the cats spooked the skunk a little bit, so I have that unique musk also wafting through. But now I have some copal billowing up from my hot charcoal. And I was out just around sunset watching the bats, sitting on my chair. Use my bug begone spray because there weren't really a bunch in the way of mosquitoes, but recently the mosquitoes have been pretty much out there. But I have my own bug begone blend and sprayed myself up. Forgot to spray my hands, and sure enough, one landed on my hand, but I caught it and I smashed it. So yeah, there's an interesting. I sprayed my face with rose water, and after I dabbed my eyes with witch hazel because I wanted to get my eyes were looking a little baggy, and witch hazel is good for that. So is rose water. They're both astringent, but rose water is hydrating. Witch hazel is toning. And we don't have any West Nile problems in Virginia. Seems to me from what I know, most of the West Nile I've heard about is generally in the news. Hello, Hans. So, so anyway, so it seems like the skunk, the skunk gives a little bit of a warning shot to the kitties and whoever's bugging it, and it wafts through my room for a while. Not that I mind it, but it was an interesting blend with everything else I got going here. Well, Madfinger has been great as a moderator, but he is a gentleman, and since I figured, let me have another female moderator. Nisha's another female moderator. Hello, puppet. Let me get this cigarette going. So, all kinds of ideas were going through, and I was playing with starting a new Gnostic themed stream, but I will be calling it when I do get it going. I didn't have time to really get, I really didn't have time to, and the inspiration to do a new thumbnail. So since I had the Mystic Brew thumbnail all up, I do another Mystic Brew. But my future Gnostic themed show will be called Telestic Transmissions, because I really want to get away from the confusion around what Gnostic is, because I had somebody drop a link here, because they see the word Gnostic, and it took me to something all about Gnostic Christianity. In other words, the kind of Gnostic work we find in the Nag Hammadi texts, which is not my kind of Gnostic. So that's why the Telestic, those who are aimed, really to me is more precise, because there is an aim to it. Thank you, Mario Heat. So and then I'm always looking at words, always, and especially since I know how all the fuckery that's gone on with history. I mean, the twists and turns of narratives are very much a part of the situation we find ourselves in. Let's see. I see my hair I should probably fix my hair a little bit. Let me get into a real-time camera. There we go. Get those errant pieces down there. Anyway, I was thinking about Labor Day. So what's, in many ways, Labor Day is a celebration of workers, but who starts the holidays? The rulers. And of course, another, the Greek word for rulers is archons. Okay, you take care of yourself, CW, and if you're here in spirit, you're here in spirit. Hello, Gary Baxter. Master Veltman, Lee, have you started a lodge or something? And Max is always on point with pointing out, much of Max Eganet is, pointing out who and what the problem is, which it very often comes back to, in many ways, us, because if you don't see a problem and don't do anything about a problem, well, then it becomes your problem or our problem. Treehouse for it, okay. But I like what Max has been doing on the false history. That's because he's bringing up stuff that you don't necessarily get on a New Earth channel, and Zohar Gate Productions has been doing good coverage in his own narration. He has a very pleasant voice. A lot of people get so plugged in about Sylvie Ivanova's Bulgarian accent, but I can understand people who can barely speak English would struggle with an accented English. And a skunk tulpa, huh? So, but I figured, what I wanted to do was, okay, so Labor Day, what is it? It's a pat on the head for all of the workers from, from the from the rulers, the archons. So, they, let's give them a day of recognition. Yeah, fuck you guys, fuck you. So I figured, okay, how do we, make lemonade from the lemons? It's like labor. Oh, that's right. That's what women do to create the population of the world. So I thought, and then of course, the whole Gnostic theme is about our Mother Earth, the planetary animal mother, our wonderful Gaia Sophia, and then of course the Anthropos women who, grow a being in their bellies. And especially in the especially in the later months, but some women almost as soon as like a week or two after some women will spend their entire pregnancy nauseous. Yikes! So this is, for me, this Labor Day is recognition of mothers. And very quickly, I have a son who's 21, and he will be 22 in November. And so I just want to acknowledge his mother. This is his mother here. I won't mention any names. This is a picture of her as I met her, when I met her. And she looks just about like that. The last time I was speaking to him, and she popped into the camera to give me a courtesy hello. She didn't look a whole lot different. A few strands of gray, but basically, she still pretty much looks like that. And I don't, wouldn't want to violate her privacy, but thank you. And so I wanted to just take this Labor Day, and it's not, and again, where do all the workers come from? They develop from the wombs of women. And whether or not they, are born in a vaginal birth or cut out in a cesarean, they still come from wombs. Oh yeah. So I mean, I remember her and her sister were coming to look to rent, I guess, a room or maybe the place that I was living in because he was leaving, and I guess they wanted to look in, see my bedroom, and she was when knocking the door, and I opened the door, and she was standing there, and went like, oh my. So anyway, so that's, so between, the fact that the population of the Earth is brought to you, as far as the production of the population of the Earth is brought to you by mothers, and then our own planetary animal mother, I want this Labor Day, from my perspective, instead of being this secular pat on the head from the people who benefit from what we would do for ourselves anyway, but we wouldn't have to be paying rent and taxes and all the crap that they've set up. Be a lot more playtime, because all work and no play makes the Anthropos a pissed off being. Hello, Jorge. Greetings. Oh, thank you, Gary. Hello, RC. Good day. And spent a few hours today watching CW. I hope it doesn't plug you in too much. I was watching Dark Journalist. My brother CW has a different opinion of Dark Journalist. We have a different opinions on a lot of things, and that doesn't matter because the love and the brotherhood is there. We're different men. We're from different generations, and so it's doesn't matter that I like certain people that he might not like, and he might not like people that I like. It doesn't matter. He can go where. And besides, I mean, somebody, I don't know, might have even BCW, might have said something about John Lash in one of my things, and John Lash replied to him in person. I don't know if it was CW or not. But John Lash replied, he goes, I don't give a shit what you think about me. Doesn't matter. I like it. So I was watching Dark Journalist. I'm really enjoying his X series. I appreciate somebody who does that much homework on what he's going to speak about. And the lucidity and depth of the way he answers questions he gets. I think he's doing a great job with it. He's tracking the mystery schools that I consider to be not my idea of what I would call the Eleusinian mystery schools, the ones that were pagan based, and not we didn't have ascended masters and angels and the rest of that stuff involved. But I like to track, what happened, because they exterminated the original learning centers that were called mystery schools, and then now they have the modern equivalent. So I like to pay attention to the modern equivalent. I've said many times I was initiated as a Master Mason, so I know all that stuff and what's going on there. Hello, Suzanne. And of course I became a Master Mason before I was exposed to the Sophianic narrative. Once you get exposed to that, do a little shamanic journeying on it, get your gnosis, which means experience of your knowledge, no way I could stay a Mason, or at least a participating one. Because, and then they're not dishonorable. I mean, they think they're following an ancient tradition, and it's a little on the old side, but it's to me it's a tradition that, compared to the true mystery schools, is a relative newcomer. So I'm doing coffee and cigarettes, and then I also have some ginseng water. And did my little kind of pre-show ritual, which is largely candle anointing, lighting, and incense burning with purpose. And speaking about incense burning, I'll probably have to throw another little bit of copal up there. I can see the smoke is thinning. If I was doing it right, it would actually, this room would look like I'm in a mist. So just give me a moment to put a few more pieces of copal on there. All right, thank you all for giving me a moment to take care of magical business here. Ritual business, whatever. I don't want to overdo it. Hello, MC Winzard. So where was I? I don't know. So anyway, yeah, Australia. I was watching. So I was watching Dark Journalist. I had to turn off the live chat. Reading live chats sometimes can put me in a funk because, hey, I like to greet people who come here, so you're welcome. Because it's sad to see, from my perspective, are so many that I would consider clueless in creation. But I'm not going to harp on that theme, because that might make me sound like, let's see, what would I want to say that? A condescending dick. And if I'm too much of a condescending dick, Omni Eros will think I'm stealing his shtick. Hello, Connie Brizone. Or, excuse me, a plagiarism. And, people asking, have you seen the latest Kerry Cassidy video? Yee. But, again, I won't be a condescending dick. And, originally, I almost, before I kind of remembered this is what I had as a title, I was going to kind of call this the title of tonight, Clueless in YouTube Land. Referring to myself. Because it's like, okay, so this is the lay of, the majority, where the majority of people are feeding, or many, and it's just like, so what do I have to insert into here? But I figured it out. Celebrate mothers. Hello, Deborah Gale. And I also want to celebrate, there's, not just the mothers who bring forward the actual child and carry it in their body, but sometimes there are, adoptive mothers, the ones who take on the role of being a mother. Sometimes when teenage daughters get pregnant and they're still not done growing up, where the grandmother becomes, in many ways, in effect, the mother. And then I'm going to even get a little further out on a limb. Somebody that we might know, somebody who was a two-spirit person, and we knew him as, or we probably still know him, but he's now no longer around, is Raksha Moose. And his emphasis on community, and in many ways the mothering role that he played in a community that apparently didn't want to be mothered. But I would like to acknowledge people like that, in this case specifically Raksha Moose. Raksha Moose is doing well, in my opinion. We're in contact all the time. I mean, I'm as in much contact with Raksha as I ever was. Anybody who wanted to have a relationship with him still has the same relationship with him now as they did before he went off the air. So, for those people who Raksha was important to, everything's the same in many ways. Yeah. I'm just, I mean, we're in contact constantly. Between, being able to speak to each other via, text meant, and, it's like, hey, I need to talk to you. Hey, I need to talk to you. So we make room, and I got to talk to you for 10 minutes. Turns into an hour. I'm going to talk to you for an hour. Turns into 3 hours. It's really it's rich and wonderful. And also meaningful. I mean, He's still observing. And since I'm still in the thick of things, you know, we get to, you know, we do what we do. Let's put it that way. We do shamanic things together. And be brothers and friends. And clan brothers. So it was very and talk about coincidences. So last night I wanted to do, I hadn't done an animal card reading for myself in a while. And I very much like the animal cards because it's a divination system that is all about the dreaming and earth and shamanic and the shamanic spaces. And so I got myself really quite prepared. I decided to do the reading outside. And I have a chair that I will often go out and sit out for my cigarettes, but it has a, you know, it has cushions that are polyester. It has arms that are, you know, kind of aluminum tubular metal. So I decided that wasn't going to do it. So I covered it with a wool blanket that I had. And that's under my porch. So I'm almost always barefoot. I mean, except to really walk across the street to get the mail or to go next door to feed the stray cats. I don't put anything on my feet. And the only reason I put anything on my feet for those is because there's a little part of bluestone. And ouch, does that hurt to step on. So I will have shoes on generally on any given day that I don't go out into town or something. I wear shoes into town. But generally, like today, I think I had my shoes on probably 5 or 10 minutes. But anyway, so I was going outside to do kind of like in nature an animal card pull. And so I covered my polyester and the aluminum with wool so I wouldn't be sitting on that kind of crap. And but I also am on, you know, my covered porch is on a concrete slab, and concrete and bare feet kind of suck some of the energy out. So I have a nice little wool. Actually, I have a little wool rug that I keep here. Not that I need to keep it here, but I do it because I have wood. But during the winter, it feels real nice to have that wool here. So I took my wool and I put it under my feet so my feet weren't on concrete. And really kind of got in the zone to do a reading, and really shuffled the cards and waited till they kind of spoke to me and said, "We're ready." And I pull a card, and what is it? Moose. I pulled moose. Even today when I got up, I mean, you know, for the longest time you get up and you put, you know, my bed and my computer in the same room, so, you know, I hit my space bar, comes out of sleep, opens up, I can see if there's anybody's messaging me. For the past couple of weeks, I make sure I at least spend 15 minutes outside before I do anything on the computer. Today I probably spent an hour before I checked the computer. Now I took my coffee outside without a cigarette and sat in the sun on my lawn in a little folding chair I had, and just took in the sun, connected to the mother with my bare earth. You know, watched all the, you know, bees and other things and the flowers, and I just really had a great time. And I actually, when I approached my computer, it's like, oh, we're going into that world. Because the difference between being out in nature, and I also have my garden out there, and my garden's doing well. I planted my carrots a little bit late, but we'll see what I get out of it. The first time I planted them too deep. I didn't realize they only need to be planted under 1/4 of an inch. I probably planted them 1 1/4 inches. Duh. But you learn by your mistakes. Yeah, so moose is self-esteem, and it's all about wisdom, and it's also in the north. And if you know your directions, especially like in the tarot, north represents earth. And of course, the Greek word for wisdom is Sophia, who's Mother Earth. So again, it was really bringing me into it. And part of the pulling the Moose card is you're receiving a pat on the back for a job well done on something. So I could identify some things I've probably been done fairly well in the past week or so, and which I won't speak about. Because I want to talk about, the things we can all share, and not about myself. I mean, I have to make some references, but no spotlight on myself. Especially for things well done. Those who might benefit know, and most importantly, Mother knows. And that card was strong mama energy. Once again, wisdom in the north, earth. That's heavy mama energy. And of course, I use the word mama very often just to kind of break it up from more terms like planetary animal mother, Gaia Sophia, and other things, because mama is kind of like the word that I use, or we use in the group that I speak, including Moose. Moose and I use the word mama. And she's been very, very, she's so much in what we do, and even in the earth and all that shaking and quaking that went on a couple of weeks ago, and I'm not sure it's over with, but it seems like it is a little respite going on. So I was watching watching Dark Journalist. He did a special Labor Day focus on Tawada de Danann, and again, he really does a lot of homework, and pulling from various sources where the subject being discussed have references. So of course that would be the Irish annals, the Old Testament, and Casey readings. And I have to, so I take in all that data, but at the same time as I'm taking in data, I'm also figuring out what kind of narrative. And that's one of the things about multiple sources. All sources are data, but in most cases when you're reading a source, what anybody does with data is they compose a narrative or a conclusion, but more correctly a narrative from data. Otherwise it's just a bunch of data points. And that's actually a big part. That's why you want your brains running the right and left hemisphere in tandem, because you're going to have what they, the left, detail-oriented taking in the data, but you need to assemble that data. So when they're working in tandem, you're kind of doing them all together. Sometimes, the more holistic with the W side of our, called the right brain, has to wait for a few more data points before it can assemble something. But as soon as there's something to assemble, boom. And I had a couple of booms today. And sometimes I don't, I love to share, but I don't like to share the things that might upset people. Because there are a lot of narratives out there, and narratives will clash. But one of the interesting things that kind of came out during the Dark Journalist regarding the Casey material, and again, Casey being a source of data, and okay, where do I want to go? Well, part of okay, so there's a kind there in the Casey data and other data around Atlantis. There is much talk of that eventually the island breaks into two groups. And the good guys in the Casey material are the sons of the law of one or something like that. So if you know me, you know the word law is an immediate red flag. We have ways. Nature is about ways. Nature would be, in many ways, that's why I like, the Tao, which means the way, as opposed to the law. And any mention of law is, rather than a way, like again, I've said it many times, people talk about the laws of physics. No, there are no laws of physics. There are observations of the way physics behaves in predictable fashions. But there are no laws. There's no courts if they break the laws. Oh, this breaks the laws of physics. Oh, call the lawyers. Again, the whole concept of laws in nature is an imposition, an insertion, an archontic insertion. It's a deviation. It's an attempt to limit nature. So anyway, so the good guys in Casey's material are the sons of the law of one, and the bad guys are, I guess the whatever of Belial, which ties into Baal, and but also there's an Irish Bel, who isn't a bad guy, and so, but again, there's a lot of confusion because we have the data, and then of course, when you there are sides in the ancient world. So obviously one side calls the other person's side the bad ones, and vice versa. So here we are looking at things, and you're wondering, okay, who, and then of course there's also the thing is, there in many ways nobody's completely clean. But anyway, in the Edgar Casey readings, the good guys are the law of one guys. That means something to me. I won't burden you with my assessment there. But anyway, there are three kind of and this is kind of tying in a little bit with some of the stuff you'll read in the Sumerian texts, where there were creations. I mean, Casey went quite on about the creation of things, workers or slaves, and then there were also automatons. Matter of fact, I remember playing the Age of Mythology, a Microsoft game, and I forget, and there was one about, had an Atlantis theme to it, and one of the things you could do if you picked this particular, if you picked Poseidon, one of the things that you got that you didn't get if you picked one of the other deities was you got automatons. So that was kind of like part of that Atlantean lore, which sounds kind of like what they're pushing right now with, I hate the faux bot, that femme thing that they call so disgustingly Sophia. It's got a bald head, and whoever is speaking through the mic to allow it to seem like it's there has a real snarky sense of humor. So you have these three things. You have things, which apparently were all kinds of chimeric type things that get spoken of, half this, half that. Automatons, which would be, I guess, kind of meat suit robots, or maybe just actual, maybe, really kind of more, maybe less meat and more machine. And then workers or slaves. And what he was tying this in with the Toada de Danann is the kind of the anomaly of the tribe of Dan, and how in the final count They were not of. They weren't in the weren't really considered in the 12 tribes, although they kind of get mixed in there. They were always kind of an outlier. They were offered some land in the original, and they said, "No, we're going to take this land." They go, "There's people living there." They go, "We'll handle it," and they did. They would know. Apparently, there was a battle, and they stayed on their ships. Apparently, that's in the Lament of Deborah or something like that, Song of Deborah. So you have, and so there's something about this Dan and going into Danann and whatever. And I don't know how much I really want to unpack this. And but there was again, when we're starting to tie in Danites with Atlanteans into the Old Testament, and then we find out that they're within the Old Testament, in Exodus, all right, so the Hebrews are slaves. I got a major, I'm not going to share it because it could be controversial, and I'm still unpacking it. It's kind of like I got a package, hasn't really been unpacked, but man, was that a huge hit for me. So I really enjoy Dark Journalist. I appreciate the amount of work he puts into his presentations. I don't care that he wears the same suit, wink wink CW, or that I think he has a silly haircut. Actually, I don't think it's silly. I'm being faux dickish there. I think people should wear their hair however they wish. If howdy doody is your thing, go for it. And it's not really, again, it's not how people dress or wear their hair. It's what they have to say. That's what matters. It makes things, being original, being who you want to be, crafting your own persona and how that persona looks. That's all part of being original, part of being authentic to who you are, not looking around and going, gee, how should I look like this person or like this person? It's just like, what do you look in the mirror. That's, I want to look like that person in the mirror. And I've had my hair short periods of my life, and usually during drinking periods of my life, and then I sober up and I'm looking in the mirror and go, who the fuck is that? So generally, if I have long hair, I'm not drinking. I've had long hair since I'm 17. I mean, I started growing it around 16, and I've had it, about this length and longer for more of my life than I haven't. I shared some pictures with Raksha recently, and a few other people actually when I have pictures of where I went from this kind of length hair, but a lot more brown, to shoulder length, and then to a much shorter cut, which I called my lesbian look, because I didn't have a beard then, and I was so pretty. So yeah, there was some really interesting things, and then I realized Casey was kind of a sleeping channel. And I mean, one of the places I spent years in was the Seth material. The books that Seth wrote through Jane Roberts. A lot of really good material there. But there were, hello Soul Traveler, but when all is said and done, and once one gets exposed to Sophianic narrative, you go, ooh, little important something left out here. And I see that in a lot of the channeling work, where there's a lot of really good, reliable information, but it's delivered in a narrative that keeps you looking to the sky instead of looking to where you come from, earth and nature. Now, of course, the sky plays some part, but there's localized agency, and to be especially like the more sorcerer part, which is about accessing source and power sharing with source. You go where the agency is, and the agency isn't like, well, if that's the lieutenant, who's the colonel? Well, the colonel is inaccessible. You have to deal with the lieutenant. You can't, it's like that's who you report to. So a big part of the Sophianic narrative, to me, the aim of the Teleste is who is the agency that we're dealing with. And our shamanic answer is the earth and Sophia, the wisdom that is here in the planetary animal mother. Hello, Jasmine. But since this is not a telestic transmission, I'll save that for a telestic transmission. But again, I'll always be coming from that place. Sam Webster, I see you said excuse the tone. Did you? Is there something? Did you say something? I didn't see anything. I'm kind of half eyeing this here. I mean, I have Madfinger and my new moderator, Elephant, Préféré, and so good balance. I have a woman and a male, and I Miss Foxadre. That came in with all that stuff, and I wonder if Foxadre, when I did my last, when I said this is the last Can't You Hear Me Nas, they figured, oh well, there's nothing here, so I'm gonna have to get in touch with Foxadre, and also maybe they have a gig that doesn't allow them to be spending time on the internet. So I want to give a shout out also and support for my brother CW and his fighting the good fight, because I have fought that fight twice in my life. First in 1988 and again in 2010. I know that fight. I know what it's like to be in the transitory neurochemical state. Fortunately, the first time I did it, I had a gem elixir. There was a combination, and I was able to buy it already mixed, a combination of amethyst, jade, and emerald. And it really helped control my rage. I had a lot of rage. My marriage was breaking up. It was breaking up because there were other players, not on my side. So I was a little rightfully pissed off. And it could develop into some really crazy rages. I mean, losing it type of stuff. But if I kept up with my gem elixir, I was able to process that and not fly into the rage and the electrochemical, the neurochemical state that is, which just kind of feeds on itself. Where you kind of kick in little chemicals and you kind of start to get the bug eyes, and the next thing you know, you're shouting, and you really lose it. No more, Hans, no more getting married for me. And that's more about myself than the ladies. When I took when I changed my name at 17 and knew I was going to be walking the archetypal sage or wizard type of path, I should have realized then not to get married. I got married at 21, 24, 30, and 48. All incredibly great ladies. But yeah, it's just so I'm kind of doing, I feel doing the right thing by staying a hermit. Hello, Fractal Truth. And kudos to the wonderful women that have been in my life. And knowing that there'll be no future casualties. And also things have changed a lot. I mean, when I first started going out with ladies, they didn't shave more often than I did. And there were no strange surprises. These days, you don't know. And I don't want anybody to scare me. I have a son, Connie. He's 21 years old. And I showed a picture of his mother earlier. I was not married to his mother. She was so fertile. Oh my God. And I knew the night, you know, it was we had gone out for, we used to like to go to, there was a place that had great Indian food, and every Wednesday night it had buffet. So you pay a flat price and you could just load up on the food you want. And, you know, so we get back and she's like, hey, you know, it was Valentine's Day. So she said, well, it's Valentine's Day, you know, aren't we going to do it? And I'm like, it's not your time of the month. And she had real issues with any form of birth control. If you can imagine what different forms I mean, there are myriad ways to avoid pregnancies. And she was averse to all of them. And so she kind of badgered me. She was like, it's a Valentine's Day, and if the only time we ever do it is when I can't get pregnant, we'd barely do it. So I gave in, and I have a son. And of course, there are things that one can do post that, but that was another thing she certainly didn't want to consider. But I was playing with it as a concept, and then he came through to me. And he said, because she had gotten pregnant once earlier on, almost as soon as we met. And I have, you know, there were techniques that midwives used to, that, you know, because midwives and wise women, they knew how to, like if you're missing your period, how to bring the period on. It's like, oop, you're late for the period, let's bring that puppy on, okay? So the first time that she missed a period, I was able to use techniques that brought it on. Next time she got pregnant, I used the same techniques, and they weren't working. And then he came to me in a dream, and he said, okay, you know, the last time it worked, but I'm in a different place this time, and your techniques don't work. You need to let me come through. You know, I want you as my dad, that's my mom, and you need to let me through. So once I got that communication, I realized, okay, gotta let that happen. Well, if you notice, Fractal, I'm not mentioning a thing. You know, if you want to, you're certainly free, you know, feel free to put it in the chat. I'm not going there. But I will say that turmeric was not one of the techniques used. Yeah, he's a good looking boy. I mean, his mom, his mom is stunning. And he's a real good looking boy. Young man, 21. And he seems, I'm pretty sure he's putting on some height. His mom, I mean, his grandmother, his maternal grandmother isn't even 5 feet. His mom is around 5'2". But I'm six, at least have, I'm 6'3" officially. I'm 65 now. Who knows if a little compression hasn't set in. But, here, let me just, I got a quick little, here's a picture of me in my first wedding. Let me just pull this over here. These aren't the greatest photos because these are Polaroids. Okay? But what I'm going to do is, this is my Korean wife. My father is 5'10". My sister is at least 5'7". And so I just to give you an idea, I'm not around a bunch of midgets, but let me go into my main camera. But here is a picture of me at my first wedding. That's that's me in the middle. This is my father. That's my sister. That was my new wife, Yoon Young. That is her sister, Yoon Sun, and Yoon Sun's husband and one of their children. I forget the names. But as you can see, I'm a tall fellow. There we go. That's me. Actually, here's a picture. My dad's passed now, but there's my dad with my new wife. He had pretty long hair then, too. Leonard Skinner reunion. Yeah, recently I was looking for some things since I now have a house to myself and I can kind of come out of all the boxes. And, one of the things you find is old photos. And it's fairly interesting. So how is everybody out there? You're welcome. Oh yeah, Polaroids. Well, also Polaroids were the only way to catch the naughty stuff. Oh yeah. Yeah, I tell you I thought after when after the full moon in the last 2 weeks, because the last last lunar cycle, it was once the full moon hit that kind of all the shit broke loose. But this one, the one by Vari, seemed to have a lot of the action seemed to be on the building moon, and it's been relatively mellow on the waning moon. Where I am, I don't think the moon has risen yet. we're getting late into the cycle. Yesterday began the last quarter. I wonder if I have anything left of my charcoal to burn some more copal. Yeah, I guess I'll find out if you're hot enough. Are you hot enough? Oh yeah, oh yeah. One more second. So, boy, did CW do an epic marathon last night. Oh, hello, Tamflower. Yeah, the moon that will rises a lot later, towards the in the last quarter. Matter of fact, I think I was out around 4 o'clock in the morning last night, and it was, it only, I would say, it was at about no more than a 45-degree angle in the eastern sky. Because, the new moon is next Sunday, so about this time or Tuesday next week, we'll be watching the crescent moon and as the sun sets. And a new lunar cycle begins. Oh, so you're in Ireland. Excellent. I'm predominantly a French Canadian, but my mom just brings like a whole load of French Canadian. What isn't French Canadian is Nez Perce Indian. And then my dad, actually, if you looked at him, there's too bad. My dad has actually very Native American features. I'm going to put him on the camera again. Again, this is, if you can see, he has high cheekbones. He has a wide face. He was a strong man. Not in a super muscular sense, almost like the way you see Native Americans. It's not like they look all rippled and stuff, but they're strong. And of course, she's Korean. Yoon-gung was from Seoul, Korea. But if you look at it, I just really wish there was a way of getting a clearer picture. But my father had a very Native American face. And so, like, my mom was French Canadian and Nez Perce. My father never quite identified, but since he came from Rochester, which is that is our Iroquois Nation territory. So he looks like a Chief Oren Lyons from the Onondaga tribe. When I first saw Chief Oren, I went, man, you look just like my dad. I mean, see him personally. So my father is half French Canadian. The other half is Scotch Welsh Irish, with whatever Native American component is put in there. So there's me. And so I keep, it's interesting. I was born in the Chinese sign of the dragon, and my last name is a Welsh last name. And so I have a few dragons around, including the Welsh flag dragon. And I have a nice big banner that I put on my backyard. Didn't want to put it in the front because I don't want to spook. I live in an area where there's a lot of people have "Thank You Jesus" on their front lawn. So I figured it's probably best not for me to put a cotton banner with a dragon that's about 3 feet by 3 feet, surrounded by a Celtic knot on it. even though I'm in very Scotch-Irish territory around here. So I have an interesting fluctuating crowd here. I've been as high as, I guess, 27 and back down to 20, currently at 26. But anyway, welcome all. I noticed some people who are not in the chat, and that's fine. I've been lurking quite a bit lately. Welcome, lurkers. Welcome all. I don't know if I'm going to go the full 2 hours tonight that I often do my transmissions, but we'll see. Okay, let me read what Elephant is saying. So obviously you were paying attention to Moose, or I guess maybe because you seem to be fairly familiar with him. Hello, Forrest Little. Well, lurking again. I've been making a specialty of lurking, and partially it's just because Foxadre. There you are. All right. If you notice, I'm very happy to see you. And it's, you know, for your contributions, and that you often, especially in regards to, you know, what the moon's doing, and you've always been, like, kind of like really great at that. So, yeah, I mean, so it's interesting. Here I am in Appalachia, where it's basically Scotch-Irish territory for the most part. And so I feel there's, you know, there's a little bit of morphic resonance, you know, biological resonance, which is really kind of, which is pleasant. But I'm not, you know, like, and like a lot of the, you know, the especially the Scotch. I mean, again, who else tosses around telephone poles as their Olympic Games? That's what's called caber tossing. Boy, you you need a unique physique to be tossing telephone poles around. And those kind of people are in this part of the country. Big men. And I've always been a long kind of otter morphology type of person. But the men in my, especially on the maternal side of my family, I mean, my Pepe, that's what we called Grandpaper. He was a good sized fellow. My Uncle Dick, my Uncle Richard, he was a tall man and a Shriner. My paternal grandfather was a Mason too. My father is like one of the only ones who didn't go in there. All right, Forrest. It's interesting today. I mean, I'm not wearing one of my kind of, they're Indian cotton weave shirts, but they're basically tunics. And I spent the whole day outside with just my tunic on, Scottish style. It's not a kilt, but if you look up the tunic, it's all Scottish. And then you know, if I have to go across the street or something, because actually the tunic I need to do a sewing job. It's ripped up to the armpit, so if you're on the right side and look at me, it's quite clear there's nothing underneath there. But I love the breeze in the moist places. it's really pleasant, actually. And when I sat down, when I got my early morning sun, that's all I had on was my tunic, and I wanted to get my legs, and I decided I'd get sun on parts that very rarely see the sun. It is healthier. It is so healthy. And right now I'm wearing leggings. I usually will put on a pair of leggings. I like leggings. Actually, I have one. The leggings I'm wearing, I have to do a repair on. There's a hole by the knee, and there's also a big hole because I tend to lean a little bit, and my ass is so bony. I actually put a hole in my leggings. So I walk to the store because I wear tunics. I always wear my tunics, so it covers the fact that I have a hole about this size on the back of my pants. And if it wasn't for my tunic, my left butt cheek would be showing. But I let the tunic do the work. Matter of fact, I'm only wearing it. Somebody say, "Oh, you look good in black," so I decided to wear my black T-shirt again tonight. And so chances of if I were to walk to the back of my room wearing the leggings I'm wearing, you'd get a half moon. I bought some new leggings, because I've had these leggings for years, and they finally wore out. And I have another pair that's pretty good. They're a little tight. These are very comfortable. So I got some new ones, and the waist isn't as high, which I like a slightly higher waist. These are. I mean, when you buy leggings, you buy I buy basically they don't sell leggings for men, at least not on Amazon. You buy them for women's size. And so it's I guess these were a little more coquettish, so they don't come up as high. And I've lost a little bit, a little thinner than I thought. I thought, oh, I should, it's a woman's size. I'll buy a large. No, I'm gonna have to take my seam ripper, get in there, and cut the elastic and make them a little tighter. Yeah, I have a union suit that is duo fold, and what it is you have cotton against your skin, a layer of wool, and then another layer of cotton on the outside. And it's one piece. And I used to wear them up in New York. I had to wear them on Long Island. On Long Island, forget about it, because in Long Island, the humidity is always high. So during the summer, it was a steam bath. And during the winter, even if it was like, in the mid-30s, if it was 35 degrees, imagine being in 35-degree water. It's kind of like what it was like there. So, before I talk about this silliness, let me read what Fox or Dre put on there. Thank you, Fox or Dre. I thought it would be Shodashi too. I mean, based on the following, there was that dual shift in the bull was really anomalous. I mean, first of all, the whole two Dakinis, which is the anomaly of the Dakini cycle with Tara and Bhudevi in the same one, and then the fact that they had a double shift. But thank you very much, Fox or Dre. I greet every crescent. I definitely wait for that first crescent to commune, because each crescent gives me a different message, as it's supposed to, and then I always do a full moon. I go out there and do that communion also. Communication. Great stuff. Oh. Well, I'm glad that you showed, because I was going to email you, Fox or Drake, because it was just like, I wasn't sure whether you were busy, lurking, or when I decided not to do Can't You Hear Me Gnostic, because there were kerfuffles, things have settled down a bit, but I wanted, what the revamping is going to be, telestic transmissions. because you know, I had somebody give me, you know, oh, you know, because I'm Can't You Hear Me Gnostic, they dropped me a video and it was to you know, Gnostic Christianity, and it's just like, okay, I realized, you know, when you have the Nag Hammadi texts being called like the Gnostic work, the term Gnostic is wide open for interpretation. Well, thank you for that, Elephant. Yeah, otter is one of my totems. Bye, Hans. Be well. Wow, Joe. By the way, welcome, Joe. Joe is another one who I admire for the research on the topics that they cover. You know, Joe from the Carolinas and Dark Journalist, two people who, when they're gonna pick a topic, they do some research. A golden, that's like, you know, that's, not only is that a lot of, I mean, that's a lot of bird, and that's a, that's a, you know, eagles are not snuggly. Most owls are pretty nice, but the closest thing to an eagle and the owl is the great horned owl. Great horned owl is a bad mofo. That's what I figured, Fox, that you had, you know, something like important to do. Well, I was hello, Jasmine. I was doing again. I did for I don't know 3 or 4 months. I did a weekly the same time as here. I did something called "Can't You Hear Me Gnostic," but it's Gnostic based on the restoration of the Sophianic narrative that John Lamb Lash did, as opposed to the Nag Hammadi texts, which are, you know, is a mishmash of kind of what I guess, you know, people in the 3rd century remembered about being Gnostic, and then the new kids on the block, you know, the Judeo-Christian mysticism and all the rest of that stuff. I mean, the Nag Hammadi text is a hot mess of syncretism. I can imagine, I can imagine your dog would want to stay quiet. I mean, a golden eagle. I mean, again, golden eagle is a serious predator bird. No, you wouldn't want to, you know, you'd want a sword or a really big stick if a golden eagle wanted to do you some harm. Same thing with a great horned owl. If a great horned owl wanted to do you some harm, you'd want to have something between you and its talons. Not to make them, there's any, you know, they are what they are. They're do you know that the preferred food of the great horned owl is the skunk? And if you were to look at their brains, they have very reduced olfaction or sense of smell. I can imagine. I mean, I remember one time, you know, being, I don't know, 30, 40 feet from a great horned owl up in the tree. And this is when I was still dabbling in alcohol, so I wasn't really in my shamanic space. Dabbling. Guzzling. And I just remember saying, you know, I mean, you know, again, it's really amazing the night and day between when I drink and when I don't. But so there I was looking at this great horned owl, and I'm like, are we okay? Where now I'd just be, you know, I'd speak to it, and I mean, now when I run into animals, I get communications. Once I engage. When I was in the Boy Scouts, we did a science thing, and I had gotten a hold of an owl pellet, and I kind of did a rough assembly of a mouse skeleton from the bones I pulled out of the pellet. Kind of put it on a board and glued it there, and I mean, not all the bones were there, but kind of like one of those makeshift dinosaurs they do in Museum of Natural History. But there were some ribs, there was a jawbone. The most important thing was the jawbone, so they could kind of get the head of the mouse. Pulling apart owl pellets is interesting. Oh, roosters can be such dicks. I'll never forget one time I was staying with somebody who had a bunch of birds, and I remember when I first got there, he was a little pecker. And then he grew up, and he was doing what roosters do, which is protecting the hens. But I heard the hens getting all freaked out, and I went to check it out. So I run behind, and all of a sudden, as I'm coming back in from checking them, he's standing there, and he comes to attack me. So I front kick him in the chest gently. I mean, he never got me, but I mean, he kept on coming at me, and I kept on gently front kicking him in his chest. And finally, the lady who owned there, she knew him. She shooed him away, and she said, he would have been doing that to you all day. And I said, I was getting the hint, and I didn't, it's your bird. I didn't want to kill it. I could have, I was just trying to get him to get the message and make sure that he didn't attack me. But that's the whole problem. I mean, you might be able to take an animal out, but if it's somebody's animal, then you got pissed off people. She was fairly feral herself. Yeah, roosters. I mean, rooster's an ornery bird, and especially if they got some hens. I mean, they're doing their duty. They're protecting it. But when you're part of the daily scenery, you know what I mean? You're part of there, and you're there with the feeding. They come after me. It's like, what's your fucking problem, rooster? Yeah, but roosters another. That's a hellified bird. So, yeah, Joe, that's a real dragger that you can't do live streaming. I would have fun at your live streams. When my mother was young, my mother was a real tomboy. She had been a lifeguard. She drove a truck for the, I guess, VFW. Rolled her cigarettes up in her sleeve. I mean, my mother was a tough broad. And when she was young, she worked at a outdoors. They kind of, it was a small thing. Her uncle eventually got into the beef business, but she was working on a farm where basically what she did was there was a guy, there was somebody there with an axe, a regular wooden axe, chopping off the heads of chickens, and then she would take the decapitated chicken and stick it into a bucket of boiling water, and then defeather it. Well, apparently one time she was there, and the axe handle broke, and with a chop, and instead of embedding in the wood, the axe handle went flying into. I remember her showing me this. She had a scar on her shin, where the axe blade had cut her open. And she just told it matter of factly. It wasn't like, oh, I mean, she didn't make it like, oh, blah, blah. You know, my mother was one tough cookie. I remember one time in the Bronx, I don't know, I can't remember, but one of the local mothers thought that I was harassing her child. And she was a good-sized lady herself. Matter of fact, certainly, if she stepped on a scale, would have tipped it more than my mom. But this lady held my hands behind my back while her son punched me in the stomach. So, and it hurt. And I was wondering, I could, getting punched in the stomach, could barely breathe. So I went in and I told my mother what happened. My mother was in her house coat. She just went dashing out the door, saw this lady. People used to sit outside in their chairs on the corner. My mother just grabbed her by the scruff of her blouse and just tossed her onto the ground and said, "You ever lay your hands on my son again, I'm going to give you more." Boy, nobody ever messed with me or her again. In her house coat. It's funny, my mother taught my father how to drive, and he was a Marine. My father was a Marine, but he never had gotten his license. She taught him how to drive. She taught him how to fish. When we went camping, we used to go camping for the whole summer. That was her idea. And there was a time we all went home for, because we used to, before school ended, we'd go down for weekends starting around May, and then when the night school ended, we'd head down there and we'd be down there in our tent. It was a good time. We had electricity and stuff, but we'd go down there for the whole summer. So one time, so basically the place would be deserted, and there was one time my mother decided, and we had a dog at the time, so my mother decided to stay down there. We all went home for the week. She stayed there by herself, almost nobody else in the campground, with just my dog, for the week by herself. Had to make her own fires, because that's how we cooked. Made her, got her own wood, made her own fires. And she told me about one night she was sitting there. She probably wanted, my mother enjoyed her beer. She probably wanted to be able to just have a week of getting really good and sloshed without my father getting all cranky on her. And but she said there was, she was there by the fire, and with our little mongrel dog Jinx, and she noticed that all of a sudden, that all around the fire were rabbits sitting. Like she said, there had to be at least a dozen rabbits, kind of like in a semicircle around the fire. But yeah, she had no problem staying, and this was in the Jersey Pine Barrens. This wasn't one of these little, off the road. This was in the boonies. I mean, even if you went to the gas station, you were still in the boonies. Never mind going into the campgrounds. Like I said, she was a lifeguard, drove a truck for the VHW, VHF, whatever, I don't know, volunteer, farm wars, women, I can't remember. And of course, we were down in those Jersey Pine Barrens. One of the big legends of the Jersey Pine Barrens was the Jersey Devil. And there was a road, a road that went through. I mean, there were some people who live in shacks. I mean, they had their I went there. They were small houses, like 1-room, 2-room houses, where there was the refrigerator was on the front porch, that kind of territory. And when it got dark, if you drove down that road at night, every door and window was locked. They were so terrified of the Jersey Devil. VFW, thank you, Soul Traveler. And I remember one night I was at the tent myself, and I heard some kind of strange sound walking in the water, because our kitchen tent was we were on a lake, and the lake had a tributary, and we were kind of camped out on a tributary. And there was, I had never heard a deer make a sound like it sounded, and I got real spooked. How old was I? I was like 13 or 14 then. But I loved it down there. Oh man, that was great stuff. Yeah. Yeah, she was there. She was there for the whole, like we left on Sunday night and came back Friday night. So she was alone Monday night, Tuesday night, Wednesday night, and Thursday night. And Sunday night. So Sunday night, we left Sunday night, and of course she probably said, I don't have to just limit myself to the few beers I know. My mother, well, I think actually, my aunt told me my mother was not a drinker until the marriage wasn't quite working out. I don't want to get into all that shit. So I understand what, and now when I review my early childhood and the chaos and the misery and I realize, I've been through it myself now, so I can look at them and go, oh man, that was poor. I get it. I get it. All that so-called nasty shit did to me wasn't even personal. They were just miserable and lashing out at the world. And if you happen to be in the middle of that lashing out, but it wasn't really personal. Hello, Tamu. Thank you for joining us. And that was a great benefit, to be able to just kind of make real peace with my childhood, as ballistic as it was. Once I got some serious perspective on it, and also remembering the soul contracts, when I really kind of blossomed and could actually remember that, oh yeah, I picked these people, and could remember past lives with Mom and my relationship with my father. The most recent one I can remember, he was a younger brother of mine. So then I saw some dynamics in our relationship where now I was the son and he was as the father, he was kind of like almost like in a role I was as the much older brother. And there's some interesting balancing of things, shall we say. Hello, Kalendal. Alright, thought I might get a little adjustment there. And, when occasionally when I go, oh man, I wish I could have attended to that while they were still here, I just contact them. I can, the lines are still open. So, yeah, I would have done it if you were around, if you were still in your body. I'd be kind of doing this for you, because I kind of understand you better now. But you're not, but here's the thought anyway. They appreciate it. So I do intend to work on a new thumbnail, something nice and sweet in Mother Earth, Planetary Animal Mother, something artistic rendition. And I want to get some kind of like some kind of thing that kind of gets in, like looks like a transmission type of thing. Because I want to, I would like my future Monday night streams to be telestic transmissions. So it's really clear, kind of like, the philosophical, cosmological seat that I sit in, that I'm sharing, and almost like, and a little bit of a, I'm not going to, the word warning would be really incorrect. Just kind of like letting people know if hearing somebody talk about John Lamb Lash and Sophianic narratives and archons and difference between earth magic and other kinds of magic, if that's offensive, Telestic Transmissions was probably boycott it. Just boycott it. I do intend to do some other type stuff. I really want to get into the alternative history a bit, but that kind of ties a little in with the Telestic Transmissions, but it could get a little sloppy because it's kind of like extra to a clean and pristine Sophianic narrative, which needs to stay pristine. Supposition to the narrative is just that, supposition. But there could be interesting suppositions. And then a little bit of the music stuff. The music stuff just takes a lot of preparation. And so who knows how much of that will be there. I love talking music. I enjoy playing my guitar. Matter of fact, last night when CW was doing his 3-hour stream, and CW's cleaning himself, cleaning himself out on a lot of levels, and he's sitting in his seat, calling bullshit on what he thinks is bullshit, and making fun of dark journalists in his suit. And but I had pulled out my guitar, and I also had my Dadgad guitar because I have a song that I've been want to work on in that tuning, and there's also that guitar which has P90 pickups, which are different than my Telecaster pickups. There's a song or two I prefer to play on that guitar because different pickups have different tones, and so I wanted to do some work. So I probably played my guitars for about, I don't know, at least an hour, maybe an hour 15 minutes. I don't think it was quite an hour and a half. And that was after watching CW for at least an hour. And I just said, look, I had all kinds of things coming from the animal cards and other things about create, and which means get busy and not watch, not sit in my chair watching YouTubes, whoever it is. So I did. I tuned in for about an hour, then I put my computer in sleep mode, and I played for a while. So then I take it out of sleep mode, and I say, CW's still alive. So I joined them then, probably for the last 10 minutes, got a chance to give him some love at the end. Because I do enjoy giving CW the love. I prefer to stay, I try to stay out of most chats. Because, the things I have to say are just generally contentious for some. What am I going to say to a question like, have you seen the latest Carrie Cassidy video? If you like Carrie Cassidy, Goddess bless you. But it's, it's kind of like asking me, do I like sticking needles in my eyes? And it's not about Carrie Cassidy being a bad person. It's just, the people she interviews and the people she interviews, the material that she seems, that she feels is important. And why does she feel it's important? Because there are thousands of people who watch her videos. And so, and there, I don't even, I have a little bit over, I almost have 1,100 subscribers. I sometimes get 200 views or a little bit more. So obviously, whatever I have to say is nowhere near as popular with the New Age diaspora, the truther, the awakened, aware, whatever, again, whatever I have to say is, it's like kind of like serving raw organic food or something. There are some people who absolutely love it, and but majority of people still think that Taco Bell and McDonald's and other kinds of toxic stuff is tasty. So, you know, who am I to getting into that mix and deny the pharmaceutical field their profits from having to deal with the ramifications of eating that crap? Well, thank you, Tamu. So anyway, yeah, I realize I kind of occupy a relatively rarefied, marginally popular niche of philosophical and community commentary. So, and I accept that. I'm very comfortable. I need to be authentic, and if being authentic isn't very popular, so I wouldn't say unpopular, but not very, then it is what it is. I could, you know, that's all I got. I got who I am. And, you know, when I lay my head down to sleep and I do my shamanic journeying and I do my communing with Mother, I got, you know, I want to present a clean person. And even to myself, even to my own higher observer self, that the one that isn't doing the doing. You know, when I do that inner work, I want to go. I need to do that in a way I don't feel shame, or at least minimal shame. And the way I do that is by being authentic, being true to who I am. And again, there's obviously I'm inoffensive to enough people to, you know, have a small subscriber base, a humble viewership, and that works for me. It's interesting, Fox or Dre. I mean, you know, for a lot of times some of the times I would do things like, for a while I liked Dr. Pepper. And one of the reasons I liked it, because it makes you fat. And when you're as thin as me, it doesn't make me fat, but it puts on unnecessary, in my case, unnecessary weight is kind of like holding the line in a way. So I liked it for the fact that it had a fattening effect. And I'd lay off it for a while, and then it just got to the point where the more my diet cleaned out, like I can't eat a Dorito, you know, or whatever, you know, the ones with all the flavor. I cannot eat them. The flavorings are just so obviously chemical. I used to like Taco Bell, what was it, 7-layer burrito, because that's the only vegetarian one they had. Oh, they had the bean burrito too, but the 7-layer, you know, they had, you know, the cream cheese and avocado and whatever. And then you see them making it, it's all coming out of tubes. You know, it's, you know, they basically, and then they fold it up in a relatively gacky tasting raw tortilla, and then you know, so for a while I used to be able to ignore it, but you know, last time I had one I was like, oh my God, this is terrible. Oh my, this is really, really like poisonous. So I just really, and so that's why I'm kind of as thin as I am. Although since I now have the house to myself, I am eating a lot more, and I'm gonna make myself a nice. What do I have? I have some Colby. I think I have some Colby cheese, so I'll be putting that on my Hemptations organic bread with a nice organic tomato, and make that kind of grilled cheese sandwich. And actually somebody brought me some tomatoes from the garden, so I better eat them before they turn into ketchup. But like, I do have some nice organic salsa, and then I have these Kirkland organic tortilla chips. So you know, I have organic salsa, organic. I mean, I have to do it organic. You know, the only way to avoid the GMO and the chemicals is to eat, you know, is to eat something that is labeled, that has, you know, passes the organic test. even organic has gotten a little, has certainly deteriorated somewhat, but at least it is not toxic in the normal way. And it makes a big difference. I mean, you know, again, I'm 65 years of age. I'm able to sprint. I don't take any medications. I don't go to a doctor. And I can even get, I mean, I'm 65. I could get Medicare. I'm not looking, I don't need it. I'm not even remotely interested. I feel fine. And a couple of weeks ago when I had to run and sprint, I sprinted. And I mean, I sprinted until I ran out of breath. Yeah, got my right knee swelled up a little bit because I did too much without warming up. I mean, it was like all of a sudden I just had to run. It wasn't like I could jog and warm up the tissue. I just went, bing! Smoke like a train. This is I'm in my almost my second hour and I haven't finished my second cigarette. I don't smoke like a train. And also the size of, even the size of, I mean, my papers are like these little stubby little papers. They're not even full-size papers. And I smoke organic tobacco. So there's none of that crap in it. It's not great for my lungs, but it's certainly, there's no carcinogens in organic tobacco. There's just tar. And of course, if you smoke more than 6 cigarettes a day, it's not great for your lungs. And that's one of the reasons I had to, you know, that's what broke my sprint, was suddenly I needed some oxygen. I just took off my shoes because I had lost something, my wallet, and so I wanted to get it, and I actually had an appointment that I had to keep. So the only way I was going to be able to go look for my wallet and keep my appointment with the amount of territory, because I don't have a car, I have to, you know, I walked, and so I had to run. So I sprinted till I ran out of breath. And I really credit the ability, you know, something I quit smoking when I was 18 and started smoking again in 2014. I quit smoking for 42 years. I haven't heard of leaf only, but not only have I not heard of it, I don't know where I would buy it. I'm very happy with the American Spirit Organic. I've tried, a matter of fact, I have a whole, I recently gave, somebody had bought me, I have people who visit me and they bring me supplies. And the first time they brought me tobacco, they brought me the kind of the light blue one and then the Pequot. Neither one of them are organic. I won't smoke a tobacco that's not organic. I would like to go back, you know, I mean, there was a period where I only smoked 5 or 6 cigarettes a day. But a part of it is, you know, I started spending a lot of time where I needed to be in front of the computer. And also, I was doing a lot of work with groups that sometimes rattled my nervous system. And nicotine kept me from erupting. There was one show I did a couple weeks ago where I was really in a place, and I needed to smoke. I mean, I smoked, I think, three or four cigarettes during that one. I needed the nicotine just keeping me neurochemically settled. You know, Fox and Dre, I don't want them to, I mean, I guess we probably have to settle for legalizing cannabis and hemp. I want them to repeal the Marijuana Tax Act, also kind of known as the Anslinger Act. Just repeal that fucking thing. Don't legalize it, because that means it's under legal control. Return nature to those of us, to the anthropos. Who the fuck is anybody to step between humanity and creation. Only archontic forces, which is what the city, state, and the whole legal system is. Hello, Lisa Gray. So that's what I want. I just want them to repeal a piece of shit criminal act. Hello, Tamflower. I mean, you know, it's, you know, to me, anything that grows natural. I mean, can you imagine if they had prohibitions on apples or peaches or tomatoes? I mean, it's that ridiculous. You know, adults should be able to put into their body whatever the fuck they want, especially when it's naturally occurring. I mean, there's few things that actually make me bug-eyed and get me pissed off more than our legal system. You know, laws. We don't need laws. We need our ways and our agreements. And if people step out, you know, and, you know, basically, you know, I mean, people handled each other for a long time. Now, if, you know, somebody does something, I mean, forget it. I don't even want to get started. I don't even want to get started. I mean, one of the things I've tried to do locally, because, you know, there's a little Bible around here. It's just, you know, and some people who, you know, might be conservative, and it's just like, okay, so once again, you know, I might not agree necessarily with the narrative, but I know their narrative. Someone would go, okay, so God gave us all the green things on the earth for our use. So who would get between what the Creator gave the created other than a demon? You know, like try to get him to show like that these laws against nature are fucking demonic. Or at least archontic. You know, same thing as demonic. Thank you, Forrest Little. And then to presume to put people, incarcerate people, put them in the fucking hellholes because they want to access nature? You talk, that is demonic. There is no way around that kind of behavior. There's no other way to call it. There is no other way to frame it. And that's why I like, you know, when I speak to Bible-y type people, it's like, do you remember? You know, it's right there in the book you guys are so fond of. Okay? Everything was given to us. Who would get between the Creator and the created but a demon? Oh yeah, there was talking about prison. You know, there was a good article on Zero Hedge today about schools are now have these people. They're kind of like almost like bounty hunters. Of course, they have a euphemism for it. But it's kids who have decided to go to work instead of going to school. And the reason why they actually are paying people to go bring students back is because they make all kinds of money for attendance. If somebody doesn't come to school, they don't get paid for them. Which is one of the reasons why schools like vaccines so much. Because like when I was a kid, we got measles and mumps. As a matter of fact, when I was a kid, if somebody had the measles or something, you went and hung out with them until you got it, because that was your inoculation. Because we all knew that these diseases were very bad to get as adults, but were basically nothing as children. If you were particularly weak, it might take you out. That's what they're actually meant to do. It's like, ooh, we don't want that part of the gene pool spreading. I mean, if you can't stand a little measles, you can't stand a little mumps without it taking you out, best to cut it short now. And I understand the heartbreak, and it sounds cold, but Mother Nature, that's wisdom. It's not cold. It actually is great compassion for the greater organism of humanity. But anyway, one of the reasons schools like vaccines is because this way here, you don't have to take out 2 weeks for measles, and then another 2 weeks for the chicken pox, and then another 2 weeks for the mumps, and maybe 10 days or 2 weeks for the whooping cough. No. That's money out of their pocket. So that's why they don't want you getting childhood diseases. It's not because the chances are they won't kill you. As a matter of fact, I one time looked at things, like causes of death. There's almost anything. Lighting a match causes more deaths than any of these childhood diseases. But anyway, they want their money, so they can't. For them, it's a bad business model for you to have childhood diseases and be out at 2 weeks at a time. Even though it's the best inoculation you'll ever have against getting those diseases as an adult. Okay, Connie, good night. And I think I'm getting ready to say good night too, because I'm starting to fire up, and it's been a relatively peaceful one. And when I get fired up is usually when I can get the most controversial. And I don't have to say everything that's on my mind. I can be authentic and still not go, there's certain, leave that alone. It's not like, there are plenty of ways for me to be authentic without having to necessarily speak my mind on everything. And it's time I'm actually talking about that grilled cheese with tomato sandwich on my Hemptations bread. It's made with hemp seed and stuff. Very good stuff. It's called Hemptations. So I'm in the mood for that. And I've only had, so far today, the only thing I've eaten is 4 slices of Dave's cinnamon raisin bread. Dave's is a local place that makes organic breads. Again, I eat only organic. My avocados, because they have such good skins on them, they don't have to be organic. But my bananas, my broccoli, everything. Really, that is how I keep my health up, by eating well, eating clean. And either it's working, or boy, did I get a good gene dish, which I did. Anyway, so that's it. That's going to be it for tonight's Labor Day celebration of motherhood mystic brew. I really enjoyed being here with everybody in the chat, and I enjoyed the chat very much. Matter of fact, I didn't go out of the chat at all tonight, other than when I had to show some pictures and wanted to make sure that I had the right camera angle without having to wait 10 or 20 seconds to see it on YouTube. Good to see you again, Foxadre. And anytime you're available, I'm going to be, just Monday nights, 9 p.m. Eastern time. If you're not doing something more important, it's always a pleasure to have you here. And, everybody else, Soul Traveler, everybody I greeted, I now bid you a fond good evening or good afternoon if you're in Australia and places like that. And Jasmine, I think good to have you join us here. And to all, just take care of yourselves. Do your best to stay in balance in a seriously imbalanced world placed on a most beautiful earth. And so that will be it. I already closed out I would have closed with my music, but I shut down my Windows Media Player, so I won't wait to call it up again. And thank you, to everybody, and for the the moderators who have the burden of having a wrench, and having, if anything happens, it's a little bit of a burden. I thank you for accepting the burden of a wrench. And so that'll be it. So I'm going to stop the streaming and